3-2-1 CBC Online with Dr. Rocky Streb, who you guys had a state championship in the wrestling. Tim Gant. Coach, talk about just watching that young man and his road to state.
It was quite a pleasure. Tim worked real hard. Everybody works real hard. Nobody gets to that level without working hard. But he works smart, does what he says. He's very coachable. He does exactly what you tell him to do each and every time. And it's just very rewarding for him, for us, the coaching staff, and even for most of the team that was paying attention and watching Tim train, to see all that come to fruition.
Again, this is your first state champion wrestler that you've had as a coach, correct?
Here at CBC, it's my first one, right.
Got to make you pretty proud to see that young man.
Yeah, we talked about it. It was actually my 23rd time in the chair for finals. Him and I talked about the first 22 that I had, and that he was the very first CBC kid that I've ever sat in the finals with. And he wanted to make sure the 23rd was pretty special and would distinguish itself from the previous 22 at another place. He did that. He accomplished that.
So when you talk to Tim, he's a pretty soft-spoken guy, but boy, when he gets on that mat, he really turns into a whole different person. Talk about the transformation from just kind of this mild-mannered kid to a real competitor on the mat.
Well, I think in both cases it's a respect level. He naturally respects and demonstrates that in his interaction with other people, especially adults. But when he's on the mat, he respects himself, he respects the sport, he respects his opponent. He goes hard. He goes hard because that's what the sport demands, and that's what he expects out of his opponent, and that's what he gives.
And he said that you predicted a long time ago that he'd be a state champion when he first started wrestling, that you had to kind of beg him to come out, and here he is, a state champion. Your prophecy kind of played out. Talk about your belief in Tim and how he's developed as a wrestler.
Well, as one of his football coaches freshman year, you could tell that this is a 14-year-old kid. It's not like most other 14-year-old kids. There was something unique and remarkable about him. So when I first started the conversation with him about how wrestling would help him for football, he was naturally not skeptical, but he didn't understand because he had never seen a wrestling mat before and had no idea. So Andrew Ness came out that year, and he was a well-respected, gigantic, not just physically but just everything, football guy. And when Andrew came out, Tim said, well, if it's going to help him, and it does, I think I'm going to give it a shot too. So Tim followed kind of in Andrew Ness's footsteps and did a real good job. He was, we found out that he learned that it was what I said it was going to be, that it would help him for football. But along the way, he found out he was a great wrestler, and he is.
So Tim goes in that semifinal match on Saturday, on Friday, and goes in the triple overtime. And that had to have been some tense moments there for you guys.
It was. And prior to that, in his quarterfinal match, he'd won that match by 1 point against the top favorite kid from Blue Springs, whose team was in the hunt at the time, and he was, of course, highly motivated. So he had that match on Friday afternoon, and then he had to come back from a real emotional win. We were worried about him letting up a little bit because he had a kid from McClure North that he had never wrestled for before and didn't really have a whole lot of ideas what he's going to be like. And yeah, went into triple overtime. It was extremely exciting and very stressful, I can tell you that.
And then certainly the final, I mean, when you look at it from a technical standpoint, I mean, you feel like he was ready to go because, again, he weighed in early in the morning and had to wrestle late at night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he stayed mentally focused. We kept him at the hotel until 2 or 3 in the afternoon before he finally went over to Hearns. The final started at 4, but his match was like 4 hours later. He didn't wrestle even after 8 o'clock. It was probably closer to 9 o'clock. So, yeah, focus was the problem, but he clearly did not waver. He was ready to go.
And let's talk about the rest of the team. You took 4 guys down there. You came back with a state champ and a third-place finisher in Bay Roar. Talk about Bay and his road.
Bay's performance is equally as impressive. He doesn't come off as a state champ, but he wins his first 2 matches quite easily. He pins one kid and tech falls a second. And then he runs up against a freshman that we don't know anything about from Park Hill, whose team is in the hunt. They're getting ready to win their second consecutive state title and multiple honors like that. So this kid was ready to go, caught Bay, pinned Bay. So now you go from I'm 1 match away from going to the finals to boom, I'm back in the wrestlebacks and the consolations. So it was a real mental letdown for him, I'm sure. But he bounced back real well from that, and came back Saturday morning. His first match was against a kid that beat him earlier in the year. Babe pins him. Now he's on a roll. And then he beats a kid from Marquette for third. So coming back from that heartbreaking defeat to finish third, that's an impressive performance.
So when you look back at the season, and obviously you're going to remember Tim being the state champion, but what are some of the other moments from the season that you kind of that are going to stick out and for this being a very special group for you?
The will to compete, the drive that these guys had, as Bay, as I just said. Then there's Alex Fisher, who had a beat a kid that was top seeded in districts in the semifinals, and another overtime match. It was incredible. Jordan Davis was also a state qualifier who showed a lot of fire. But even the guys that didn't make it that far were competing and scraping and just staying in there all the way to the bitter end. And that's what I'm going to remember about this group.
And again, for Tim Gant to come in next year as the defending state champion, all eyes are on him. So it's going to be a little tough road for him next year.
It is, and that's fine. He can deal with that. We're happy. We're a program trying to get noticed. Have reached a level. I started talking to these kids 4 years ago when I came in. We want to be relevant. We want to matter on the high school wrestling scene, and we haven't to this point. Well, we're relevant now. We matter. People are going to. We had some determination in the last two state championship team titles were in some way shaped by kids from CBC made that difference. So we're relevant. I expect that to play out in real tangible terms. I'm looking for an improved, increased, harder tournament schedule for our guys, and to get into these tougher tournaments, we have to matter, and I think that's going to happen for us.
Again, that's CBC Online with Dr. Rocky Streb. Got a state champion, third place, and brought 4 guys to state. Coach, we will talk to you next time.
CBC, Men for Tomorrow, Brothers for Life.